Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a riveting webinar today, Alumni Marketing Meet COVID-19, how cultivating relationships with former patients goes on even during a pandemic. I'll be presenting today. I'm Dan Gemp. Who is Dan Gemp? Other than your narrator for today's webinar, I've been working in the behavioral health community since 2005. I am the CEO of Dreamscape Marketing. We're a digital marketing agency. We've worked with groups in 39 states. We've launched over 600 websites, coming up fast on the 700 mark. And we've been running digital marketing campaigns for a long time, for over 400 groups now in mental health and behavioral health. We're often involved in transactions, and so some of the data, some of the information I'll share today is from those, historical experiences we've had where value is derived directly from alumni communication and marketing. And this really all comes down to your company, your brand, your treatment center, or your practice properly communicating with your alumni. So that's where we're going with things today. A few housekeeping items. This is a sponsored webinar by my agency, Dreamscape Marketing. So thank you for joining us. I hope to share actual tactical insights today. So you should all be leaving with tangible marketing value that you can deploy for your own business. For questions and answers, you can submit a question on the bottom left of your screen at any point during the presentation. All questions will be answered during the last few minutes of the program. For resources, you can find a PDF of the presentation and additional resources under the headshot image located to the left of your screen. For help or assistance during the program, please email Melissa Pangaro at mpangaro@naccme.com. For NADAC credit information, to receive credit, you must watch the program all the way through the Q&A section at the end of the presentation. I'll make sure to keep it riveting. Do not leave the console. Please continue to stay on the platform and you'll be automatically redirected to an evaluation landing page. If this is your first time attending a webinar in 2020, you will need to create a NACME account when you are first directed to the landing page. For all subsequent webinars you attend, you will already have an account and will just need to log in. After completion of the evaluation, you will be able to download or print your certificate. NADAC credit is only offered for the live broadcast, so again, thank you for joining us live today. Without further ado, let's really take a look at what is shifting, right? What are the day-to-day challenges of running an addiction treatment center during a pandemic, okay? And this is not the first for many of you. Those who were around and operating during the 2009 financial crisis saw notable spike in mental health treatment demands, a lot of unemployment. And so the effects of this are just, off the charts. We have seen anywhere from 15 to nearly 40% increases in demand for treatment at different levels of care. So we have to realize as a community, right, as a treatment community, that it is harder than ever to step back and take a look at the big marketing picture, right? So not just your alumni program, but all of your communications in general, and that it really points out the fact that you must have an alumni program. If you don't have that formally segmented out in your marketing mix, you are doing a disservice to your patients and past patients. How you interact with your former patients needs to be developed from a strategic level, right? It needs to be implemented with great intent. You can't just say, hey, we call our alumni once a month to see if they want to come back. It's really about personal connection, not just about marketing to a captive audience. That's ethically fallible. So the relationship is what we're going to talk about today, how to provide value in that relationship, how to be a resource, a friend, a support mechanism for your community, and to take an alumni and really make them a member of something, really provide value. So this affects everything from your reputation to the number of new patients that you see each month. It's not something that can be left to chance or just dealt with when time allows. As business owners, we must discuss this vital but often overlooked aspect of your marketing plan and how it can be a win-win for you and your patients. You're not just trying to market to them, right? You're not trying to sell your alumni. That's really not where the value in the relationship is. What you need to be doing in this entire function is demonstrating commitment to your alumni and to addiction treatment, right? To long-term recovery and wellness. That commitment is the message you need to be focused on, right? How can we help you? How are you doing? The same way that you would reach out to an old friend, right? You need to be encouraging alumni to pay it forward. So have you gotten to a point in your own recovery where you feel strong enough, confident enough to help others in need, right? To help a family member, a friend. If so, you need to be providing resources to your alumni, educational, both for themselves and things that they may be able to share, right, with others in need. That's going to allow them to recommend your treatment, right, by sharing your thought leadership, by sharing resources and wellness tools that you're using to support them long term. It's the same reason somebody would love their alma mater, right, their fraternity, their college, whatever it may be. You have to adjust your marketing to best serve alumni. This is not an outreach program. This is not you selling to your alumni. This is about service. And if you provide the best service around and the best community and connection around, right, and that is a formal program throughout COVID-19, you're going to grow dramatically and come out the other side of COVID-19 with a support community that you've never seen before. Now, let's take a look at the overall consumer landscape and why I'm saying this is such a pivotal part of your strategy and marketing overall. The shifting consumer landscape for mental health, and I'm going to use the term vice, right, during COVID has been ludicrous. So liquor sales are up more than 50% nationwide. I've seen some statistics as high as like 70 and 80%. And that's an indicator. That's a big indicator that we keep an eye on just for how the general American populace is doing, right? It's a self-medicating statistic more than anything else. Adult web traffic is up 40 to 50% during COVID. Attempted suicides are off the charts. Domestic violence and divorce are skyrocketing. Unemployment has impacted 50 million plus Americans. And this one's interesting too, because with unemployment comes a shift in the insurance coverage of your patients. So maybe someone that was able to come to you before has changed insurance or had to go on public options and they can't currently come to you. Are you providing resources still for that alumni, right? It's the right thing to do, but maybe they know other people where they'd have the ability to engage with your programs. So this is a shift in the landscape that this industry hasn't seen in a very long time, okay, in at least a decade. With new admissions, new alcoholism off the charts, right, this concept of a 50% general increase in these vice categories, you have an obligation now. I'm no longer talking about a clever tactic in your marketing. I'm talking about a moral obligation that you have to your alumni that is going to impact your own long-term success, your own ability to maintain strong outcomes, right? Their long-term recovery is more important now than it's ever been. And this goes back to the very start of COVID. So there's a few key things to remember about alumni marketing, right? It's about support. So you provide treatment on a very, very short timeline, right? At a private practice, you're providing, an hour here and an hour there. In residential levels of care, great. You've got 30 days of intensive treatment after years and years spent in active addiction. So this is a maintenance program, right? Your alumni marketing is actually a maintenance program. You need to be providing tools and mechanisms for general wellness and mental health. The occasional keep in touch email doesn't cut it. That's not a connection. That's not a relationship, right? Think about your most loved connections in life, whether it's personal, business. Do you only keep in touch by email? Or is there a social media component and an actual phone call component? And do you provide them with funny videos to watch and other clever media that is relevant to how you know them? This can't be an afterthought. People know when they're being treated like an afterthought, okay? And, this group in particular, like you're not going to be tricking your alumni into pretending that you care. You have to actually care. You need to put a team and a program in place that is intentional because your alumni will see that. They'll know whether or not this is the real deal. So you don't just text them when time permits. It shouldn't be every 63 days or whatever. You need a formal follow-up regimen. You need multiple channels of communication. What happens if you go to call an alumni and they don't pick up? They could be in dire need. What other means do you have of getting a hold of them? So the benefit of formalizing all of this isn't just in that direct relationship. That is what this multi-channel communication is, what allows you to empower your former patients to help other people, right? So your investment, it is marketing. Your investment in your alumni is because you care. And it's the same way you communicate with a friend. It is very social. But the result is you're now giving them tools, resources, and demonstrated value. You're proving that you care. And so they'll feel comfortable introducing you to another friend in need. A proper alumni support program needs to promote long-term sobriety. So what are you doing to help people find meetings, right? The biggest issue that I have heard from clients where we're engaging in their alumni communications is, hey, there's no meetings out there. And these telehealth meetings are a mixed bag. Some are fantastic, some are not. So you really need to be providing tools for long-term sobriety. Access to education, relapse prevention programs, group sessions, workshops, right? You've got to be actively inviting your alumni to engage you. And it may be through telehealth, right? That's a great option. It may be through other national resources, but you very much need to be running your own workshops, your own events, and creating community right now. During a pandemic, I think the premise is this, right? Life skills, life happening, life going on. If you can deliver good news to your alumni from other alumni, that's going to be a pivotal support pillar, right? So, hey, send us good news. Did you get married during COVID? Did you have a child during COVID? Did you get a new job? Did you lose your job and you need help? Those are the kind of conversations, just life skills, lifestyle kind of communication that you can be having with your alumni that your other alumni very much embrace and they want to see and they'll feel valued from. An effective alumni program serves as a safety net, okay? And we don't mean just for recidivism and relapse. We very much mean that you have to provide a lifelong, sobriety support community. And so you're making your own group. You're really focusing on the individual alumni and how you're going to help them after treatment when they're not necessarily a paying customer, right? It begins with reassurance. It begins with simply staying in touch. Think about how you feel. Do you ever have an old roommate that hasn't kept in touch with you? Do you feel very reassured that they were your friend? What does that look like? So by staying in touch with your former patients at any level, right, they're going to have a sense of reassurance that they're not on their own, right? Hey, congrats, you did 30 days of treatment, your bill's been paid, get out. That is not a supportive, reassuring attitude. That's what causes fear. But simply keep in touch. Hey, how you doing? Hey, COVID's a mess. How are you doing during COVID? Do you need help? That's the first part of an effective alumni program from the safety net perspective. Connection. So you should be the gentle, soothing voice of a friend, okay? You can have your therapist. This doesn't need to be marketing and admissions staff reaching out. You can have designated alumni directors if you have the luxury of that resource and the budget to invest in it. But you can have therapists reach out over time and keep in touch with people, or host a group, video meeting, things like that. And that connection is extremely important right now. And social isolation is the main driver there. So in general, a year ago, I would have said connection matters. What I'm saying now is it's actually pivotal to the survival of some of your patients. This has become life and death. It has become, an acute medical issue. So isolation during COVID has led to, college-age students, 1 in 4, 1 in 6, depending on the studies you've read, have contemplated suicide since the beginning of COVID lockdowns. That is a horrific indicator of the state of mental health in America. And this is the group. Imagine all of your patients and how they're struggling right now. Connection can be at any level, and it truly can be life or death. So again, I'm viewing this more as an obligation. If you have built a community, you need to support that community because there's very real consequence right now. and it's alarming. Empowerment, right? So from a safety net perspective, reassurance is simply showing that you care, demonstrating that you care. Connection is actively helping, right? How can I be of service? And empowerment is giving an individual the tools they need, right? Advice, right? It is wisdom, not knowledge, right? That are going to help them resist, to fight relapse, to fight recidivism in general, to fight, dark thoughts and other mental health issues that may not even have been prevalent during your treatment time with them. So what will happen is when you provide someone with the tools they need and then they experience success, if you were a source of empowerment, you will directly be credited with that. They will have gratitude for whomever empowers them. And that is when an alumni would feel comfortable paying it forward. It's not because they're staying sober for a certain period of time and then they're ready to refer patients to you. That's not what they do. That's not medical professionals, right? It's you gave them wisdom and encouragement at a time of need. That empowered them, and they're grateful for it. So they will support you. An effective alumni program creates goodwill ambassadors for your brand. So where am I going with all of this? And we'll touch on specific tactics and channels here, but the goal for you should be to educate your alumni, and they will educate others. Okay? Very comparable to how universities do it. An alumni program is where hospitality meets healthcare. And so as you educate your alumni, they're going to share those resources, or they'll tell their families. You'll tell them something, and they'll parrot that back to others. That is the first step in an alumni becoming an influencer. I don't mean this from the perspective of Instagram, social media influencers. I mean this as sharing knowledge, right? If I ask any of you, have you shared knowledge with someone in the last week? I am certain that every single one of you could give me an example. It is part of what we do as human beings. We act as part of society. Everybody's keeping an eye on healthcare, politics, mental health, COVID. These are all hot button items right now, and we have all been having conversations about them. So as an influencer, you have touched on one of those categories probably in the last 24 hours, but definitely within the last week. Imagine if all of your alumni mentioned your treatment center or your practice in the last week to other people that they know. Okay? The key point in all of this is their own individual success. When a mother says, I got my son back, right? When a father says, wow, you've been to 7 treatment programs, and this is the only one that's really still in touch with you, and you're doing great. That success is what inspires others, right? Witnessing success stories, long-term sobriety, empowered individuals. And when they say, hey, what do you credit with that success? They're going to credit you and their own work, right? If they're putting in the work and they're really focusing on this, you're going to be a resource and someone for them to lean on, right? So that is what generates goodwill, and goodwill ambassadors happen organically. You can't force that. You can't ask somebody to evangelize your treatment center. Due to the stigma in this industry, it's often something that won't be talked about much at all. It'll be one person talking to one other person and addressing their own experience. So you have to create an environment that fosters this. You can't just make it happen or hope it happens. An effective alumni program reinforces brand and the culture you've created. So by communicating with former patients, you're actually reminding them of your center every single time. More importantly, of the dedication you have to your mission. So an alumni program is a continuation of that same helpful voice that former patients heard while they're in treatment. Is it therapy? No. Does it need to be the same person they met with every day? No. But that connection, it's meaningful, and it's a reminder, right? So you're reinforcing to patients that they're not just a number to you, they're not just a statistic to you, right? When I get a phone call and somebody knows my name, they immediately have my attention and I feel valued. The organization here, right, from a department perspective or your alumni function, is going to let you demonstrate to these former patients that you remain committed. That's very, very good for you from an outcomes perspective, right? But it's also from a pure marketing perspective, it's the mechanism that reduces bad social media reviews, complaints, people talking trash, losing employees, right? You're going to find that when you deploy your mission to better support your alumni and you dedicate personnel to this effort, it does drive more admissions and referrals and such, but that's not the primary goal. You'll find that your employees will believe in you more. They'll support you more because they realize, great, this is not a one and done 30 days of treatment and out scenario. The company I work for, they want me to keep in touch with the people that I make meaningful connections with while they're in our care. That has profound impact. An effective alumni program is a reliable source of referrals. Okay, so now we're going to get into the marketing side of it, but I just wanted everyone to realize that the landscape we're in mandates that you expand your alumni efforts and build community and connection. There is real risk to your past patients, all of them right now. And so you are doing a disservice if you're not engaging this way. Now, what are the advantages? If you effectively do that and you're providing resources and support and goodwill, and people are feeling comfortable now in being a part of your community to pay it forward, what does that look like? How can you maybe manufacture a point of strength from that becomes commonplace in your culture and in your organization? So keeping in touch, right? Third and fourth time I've said it now, it's that simple. Remember, right, that one patient is often not alone in their addiction, right? They're struggling with a series of toxic relationships. They're often in personal relationships with others that are in need of treatment. And so they can bring many, many others into your sphere of influence and possibly to your actual center or practice for care. When a patient leaves your program, right, and think about what process you do or don't have there. Is there an exit interview? Is there a final therapy session? Do you hand them life skills materials and brochures and a wellness kit? They know a lot more specifics about the addiction treatment than when they arrive. So think about this. You know your industry, you know what you do. Unless someone has gone to treatment, unless I have gone to rehab and I'm in recovery myself, the vast American populace knows nothing about it. They don't know what occurs behind the doors of a treatment center. They don't know if this is a psych hospital and do people still use straitjackets these days? Is somebody giving my child lithium and they're going to be sitting around drooling? Like, what does this look like? So once a patient is comfortable with your program and they've received strong clinical care and made meaningful connections and seen the support of their peers in a recovery process, then they actually know about how addiction treatment works. They realize it's an option. That option provides hope. Treatment does work. And so when they leave, they're actually an educated consumer. And everybody else that hasn't experienced that is an uneducated consumer. And so they're viewing this from a stigmatized perspective through an odd social lens. They haven't had that firsthand experience. So now realize that if you're that patient, if your experience is top-notch, if your therapy itself was good, you'd be more likely to discuss that with friends and family, even casual acquaintances, and you'd feel much more comfortable even telling people proudly, I'm in recovery, I can help you, I'm in recovery, I had a great experience at this place, but here's why. Here was the meaningful connection that I was able to make and the tools I was given when I was in treatment, maybe with this specific doctor or this specific therapist. So if an individual, if one of your alumni is succeeding in recovery, it also lends credibility to their opinions, good or bad. If your alumni have bad opinions, you're going to be smeared on social media, and good luck. But if you've invested in providing tools, recovery, good clinical experience, and long-term care, regardless of whether or not you're being paid for it, you're going to have a credible, large-scale network of individuals in recovery, right? Their opinions, when they share them with friends and acquaintances, are going to be exceptionally impactful, more so than your own, right? If someone calls your admissions line, of course you're going to tell them you have great treatment. That's the sales pitch. But if they hear from a friend who's 4 years sober and looking great and in good shape and doing well in life and gainfully employed, that is why you're building this alumni program from a marketing perspective. Every referral coming from an alumni program is potentially another life saved, but it's also going to be at an exceptionally high conversion rate. So a warm introduction from an alumni, if you don't admit that patient, I would be shocked. Now let's look at this being a source of future staff members. So an effective alumni program is that source. I have a grievance with the industry at large that a lot of technical staff and administrative staff are employed, in my opinion, a bit too soon, right? So you're a few months of sobriety and all of a sudden you're qualified to help with intake processes and such. But actively stay engaged with your alumni and seeing which ones truly believe in your care and are becoming these goodwill ambassadors. Addiction treatment centers employ people that have had their own struggles in the past. When you see your own alumni succeeding, right, then you can connect with them for potential employment. So this isn't cold resumes. These are people that you already knew and they already knew you, and you have that connection. So you know their character, they know your clinical protocols. There is a belief and a trust back and forth. How do your therapies work? How does an addiction treatment program work? Imagine anyone in your organization being able to confidently say, I went through this program myself, I'm 6 years sober, and I just took a job here. That's how much I believe in it. Empathy, okay? So this is something that families struggle with, right? When they call an 800 number, when they call a treatment center, they don't know what to ask, and they're in a state of emotional dismay, and they need empathy, right? But if it's the parent calling, it means something if you can say, hey, my own mother was exactly where you're at right now, and I came here myself, right, and found meaning, connection, and success, right? So any alumni that are qualified to work, that have pursued any kind of licensure and whatnot, that are qualified to work in your programs, they can empathize in a way that others cannot. And you're going to find this dedication, a loyalty that this group of employees has to their jobs. They will be your longest standing employees. They will be very loyal to the company. And so that's going to help reduce staff turnover and increase morale. It's going to give you a culture of, we've got team members in recovery that believe not just in recovery and the power it has, but in our programs. And they've lived it and they love it, and they are, living, breathing evangelists of the success that you can experience in our care. And I'm going somewhere with all of this, but you need to find a direct but casual way of introducing an alumni program to your patients, okay? Everyone's being inundated with technology right now. Texting and emails are off the charts. Desktop advertisements are working again, so there's display ads like crazy. And so you need to begin this while a patient is still in your care. When a patient leaves, they need to immediately receive communication from you, ideally from multiple channels. Ideally, they receive an email that's a bit more formal, but then you immediately reach out and make a connection through the phone, through text, whatever that may look like. And this is part of the value, right? You need to say, hey, congratulations, right? This is your graduation day. You did it, but it's also the first day of the rest of your life, and you got more work to do. We're going to work with you to get through that. Imagine the feeling of just kind of saying, hey, here's your suitcase, here's your phone, good luck to you, and walking out that door into a scary world hoping you don't do heroin again, right? Now imagine a world where everyone that you made personal connection with congratulates you, like graduating from high school or college. They acknowledge the fact that you're about to go out in the real world and face some challenges, and they provide you with the resources you need to not have fear in that situation, to be empowered. Now imagine that your mere suggestion of staying connected with other alumni is highly beneficial, right? Who was in the social circle that patient had before your care, right? Was it only their other friends that were in active addiction, that were abusing drugs and alcohol? So if they can't go hang out with their friends at the bar anymore, right, and they're in toxic relationships even with their own family, where do you go for meaningful connection? There's meetings, right? But if you provide that, if you provide community and say, look, you just went through treatment with 20 other people, 40 other people, and you made some connections there. But did you know that we actually have 1,100 alumni that are involved, in different regions around the country? And we have video meetings, and we have barbecues, and we have social outings. You can suggest that first day, right? And you're offering friends. So think about your own life when you moved to a new place or took a new job and you didn't know anybody. Who was that first person that said hello to you and offered to introduce you to other people? And do you remember them, and do you like them, and do you credit them with being a friendly and likable person? That's what you need to be to your patients before they leave. You can mention directly that your alumni program keeps them informed. So say, hey, look, you might not appreciate it now, but this certainly isn't spam. You might feel really good and really empowered right now, right? But don't let that become hubris. You need to keep working, keep getting meetings, keep going to programs. So we're going to provide you with tools, and they may or may not matter right now, but there is going to be a time when it matters a lot, and we want you to keep in touch with us, right? The mere mention of that will help a person to remember, like, oh yeah, when things do get harder, things do get a little dark, I can then pull up the white paper or the email or that video of encouragement from my therapist and engage. You should also have a conversation, a dialogue, not just a one-way email blast or something, but you should have a dialogue about why your alumni program is about people who understand and empathize with each other's triumphs and struggles. So if you inform a patient like, look, it ain't going to be easy. It's not all sunshine and rainbows out there, okay? But we've put this community together to celebrate each other's triumphs. Go get that amazing new job. Go get married. Build your family, live a good life, right? And guess what? We're also all going to be there to catch each other when we fall, because it's going to happen. That is meaningful connection. It's also good marketing. It's brand. I'm describing, at the same time I'm describing meaningful connection, I'm describing brand loyalty, right? And I'm describing a long-term ambassador program. And energy drinks are following the exact same recipe. They've got promoters and community outreach and all of that. So this is retail marketing, but it needs to be from a point of sincere communication, and you need to have dedicated resources behind this program. To make an alumni program relevant, why should anybody care? Why should your patients care? Who the heck are you to tell me what to do, right? You need to identify why former patients should want to be involved in the first place, right? Hey, man, I'm lucky I got myself sober. Don't ask me to do anything else, okay? So to reach former patients and get them involved in an alumni program, you've got to provide answers to their questions right away, immediately, before they leave your care. If you're re-engaging patients now and trying to build an alumni program, you need to begin with these things. So we're getting into the tactics now. We're going to talk specifics. Answer these questions. How will you help me now that I've left treatment, right? And say that you're reaching out to people from 3 years ago. Oh, thanks for showing up after 3 years. I could have used some help this whole time. How are you going to help me now, buddy? And assume that you're talking to an audience that has some fear and some doubt. That's what you need to overcome. How can I get in touch with other former patients like me? I don't just want to talk to my therapist. I don't just want to have medical conversations. I don't want to talk about my feelings. I just want to talk to somebody else who's going through what I'm going through that's not in a meeting, okay? Celebrating success. When you celebrate the patient's success, which you need to lead with, they are considering, well, how do I celebrate your success? So when someone says happy birthday to you, you immediately think, oh my gosh, when is that person's birthday? And did I say happy birthday to them? If your treatment center or your practice has grown since the patient left, or you're succeeding during COVID and you're helping people at scale, that is something they'll celebrate with you. So you can give people good news about your business growth, and the expansion of resources is how that should be presented. And then these next two questions are a little bit specific, but what is your program doing that I would feel good about, telling others about? So do you have a day of service? Are you doing fun trips with your alumni? Is there an annual whitewater rafting trip? Is there any kind of charitable effort that you guys are involved in nationally? So good news is good news, and people like supporting well-intentioned organizations, regardless of whether they're for-profit, nonprofit. Think about the groups that you believe are doing good in America right now during COVID, the groups that have supported national needs for PPE, the groups that are supporting in senior care, right, the frontline workers, as the senior population is highly susceptible to COVID. Those are the kind of things that people really feel good hearing about. And you need to give those points, those talking points to your alumni to share. And that engages the ambassador kind of an experience. Does your alumni program empower me to help others struggling with addiction, right? That is something you'll need to define. How does your alumni program empower me? If it does, why am I going to continue to engage it? Are there videos of encouragement? Are there tips about life skills? Did you help me get my job? Right? That's one of the big ones that a lot of companies overlook, treatment providers overlook, is employment, right? Employment gives meaning and value. It provides resources. It often keeps idle hands busy, right? And so that kind of a concept, that kind of engagement is how you need to be answering these questions right out of the gates. Referrals. Let's talk about how an alumni program turns into referrals. It's a secondary effect. Your primary goal of an alumni program cannot be the acquisition of patient referrals. That is ill-advised. It will not work. Here's how alumni programs do work. They complement your referral marketing, okay? Here are the two statistics you need to know. 92% of people trust referrals, specifically medical referrals, right, from people they know. How did you find your dentist? Did you ask a friend or did you look them up online? How did you find your job? So think about the things that have been referred to you in your own experience as a consumer, right? A good doctor, a good dentist, whatever that looks like. You trust people in these referrals if it's a person that you know. Getting those referrals is very difficult. Here's the stats. 83% of people are willing to refer after a positive experience, but only 29% of them will actually make the referral. So there's a willingness. They're happy to help you. They're happy to be part of your community, happy to engage, but 29%, right? Contrasting the 92% who, trust these referrals are going to do that. So creating the successful referral process is hard. This is a difficult component of your marketing, and it's tough because it requires a lot of upfront investment of your time, resources, and demonstrated commitment. But now think about this. What if 29% of your alumni refer you a patient over time? Maybe it doesn't start until a year from now, right? But we're at an all-time high level of need. We've got an epidemic converging with a pandemic. This is truly ludicrous level of market impact, right? And people are isolated more than they've been in all of history right now, right? So if you can have that meaningful connection with your alumni such that 83% of them are willing to refer someone to you, and realizing only 29% of them are going to, right? This is not an easy automated thing. I'm not saying, if you simply create an alumni program, it's just going to work. I'm helping you to project what could it be worth, what might the outcome be if 29% of your 83% were able to drive additional admissions over time from a referral perspective. Alumni referrals are a win-win. Here's the interesting part of it, right? As opposed to purely clinical referrals where a colleague or a private practice may refer patients to you for specific levels of care, other than insurance providers saying this group is in our network, you may go to them for treatment. There's very much an all parties win mentality here, right? So when alumni want to spread the good word about your treatment and the needs of the community and your program are going to be served at the same time, right? So goodwill was demonstrated by you to them already. And then they're sharing that goodwill with someone in need. And when that person in need engages you, then they get to treatment too. So it is a win-win-win. It's cyclical. Now, unlike when you market directly, right, a broadcast communication to prospective patients saying, hey, did you get drunk today? Call now, right? And just bidding on AdWords, Google ads on, heroin detox center. Other than that broadcast kind of marketing, which is effective, alumni referrals aren't controlled by you, right? They're much more trusted because they're not manufactured. And so they're controlled by the quality of the relationship you have with your former patients. You must invest in that quality relationship and support them as you would a friend, a colleague, an old roommate. And handled correctly, there's a pro and a con to this. The alumni referral process is unobtrusive. It is casual. It is conversational. It is not manufactured. You're not asking for business and they're not offering it. You helped a person and that person is helping another person. It is meaningful relationships. You happen to make your living doing that. But if this was any other kind of medical service, if you were a neurosurgeon and you save someone's life by cutting out a brain tumor, and they meet someone else who has a brain tumor and refer them to you to save that person's life, right? It is that relationship. This is a medical outcomes relationship. Handled incorrectly, if it looks manufactured, if you are asking for referrals, shame on you, right? The alumni referral process will be ineffective and it will compromise your reputation. So not only will it not help you, there is a downside. If you look like you are cultivating leads through this channel, that is not your focus. That is a wonderful ancillary outcome, right? But if you're trying to get leads for the sake of leads, it's going to hurt you much more than it's going to help you. So this strategy, this channel, do not approach it if you're not all in, because it actually has a downside, right? Whereas with paid search, if you spend money on it, you'll get some clicks, you'll get some calls. But if you turn it off, there's not necessarily a downside. If you engage your alumni without sincere intent, without quality in that relationship, just like you, nobody wants to, make plans for Friday night and then get a text from a friend that they made better plans with someone else, okay? That's how it will be perceived. So how can you promote, right, and have sustained alumni marketing? You need to identify out of all your alumni, right, who are the influencers? Who's succeeding in life the most? Who's winning? Who's doing well? Who's demonstrating the strength that you tried to instill in your treatment programs? They're going to be inspirational. And so among your present patients, among your former patients, think about this. If I ask you, who's the person whose life you impacted the most, right? And then I ask you, who's the nicest person that you've ever encountered, right? These people stand out to you in your entire life. They are inspirational. Like, what a good person, what a kind person, how welcoming and inviting that person was. Oh, I'm so happy they're succeeding, right? So, in my image here, I'm talking about mysocialmediaaccounts.com, right? How do you engage through your social media to find that gratitude and get your influencers engaged? These are the people that took your advice. These are the people who listened to you the most, your best students, and they put absolutely everything they had into their own recovery. That makes them, by default, your goodwill ambassadors, and this should be encouraged. They need to continue to have a close relationship with you. So you don't need to do anything special. You don't need to get them to go out of their way and do anything on social media, but you do need to involve them in your community. You might have a private Facebook community. You might have video meetings, whatever that looks like in this COVID market. They're the people that you don't have to prompt. They'll just say that they're doing well and be honest and open, and that's going to very much support your efforts. If their experience was excellent, then you simply do everything you can to make it easy for them to spread the word. So you would invite them frequently to engage the rest of your community. Somebody who's new, who just got out of your program, needs to meet this person. They need to get that inspiration. They're the true believers. They're the ones that have credibility and opinion that can clearly influence others in need. And this isn't a trick. If they got good treatment with you and they believe in it, they're speaking pure truth from a credible personal perspective to those who need your care. They wouldn't do it otherwise. Now, how do you create a presence on your own website that demonstrates this support and respect for your alumni? Okay, so this one is where it gets even more tactical. So, myaddictiontreatmentwebsite.com, right? A lot of treatment centers have some type of, businesses in general have referral programs, but treatment centers have outreach to other professionals, right? To psychiatric practices, to therapists, to even family law groups, right? So realize that, the only problem is that it isn't always evident to visitors when they land on your website that this is even an option for them, right? You're not necessarily putting your alumni programs and picnics and whitewater rafting trips on your homepage, and that is where they'd be engaging. So in order to be effective, your alumni program, both new patients and alumni need to know about it, right? should be preaching to the choir in this one, but you'll be amazed. If you called all of your alumni right now, and you do have an alumni program, I bet you a lot of them still don't know that it's a formal thing. So put it on your website and realize it's good marketing for your other marketing efforts. When a concerned mother gets to your website and they see that you're invested for the long term in their child's recovery, that is demonstrated sincerity. That's meaningful connection to the mother. So your other marketing channels will be strengthened by simply having an alumni program. First-time visitors to your website should see some mention of this. So just like outcomes data would be extremely meaningful and impactful if it is, validated by a third party, simply having an alumni program and showing that to people is going to help your credibility and your conversions. This is going to signal loud and clear that patients' experience and their success, right, makes them happy to be associated with your program. So you're kind of passively bragging, like, our program has been so great and so effective that all of these people are still part of our community. How cool is that? And think about, again, major universities, major hospitals, right? They have donor programs. They have people that are so grateful for the treatment they received at Johns Hopkins that they donate money back and retrofit an entire wing of the children's cancer treatment component. In addiction treatment, this looks like people that are willing to speak on your behalf at conferences or come back and speak in some of your group meetings, things like that. So what do you do specifically if you don't have this as a very formal program? You might not have an alumni-specific website, and I do recommend that. I think that people don't necessarily want to speak on your retail site where you're overviewing your programs and putting job posts. So you could have a dedicated alumni website. At the very least, put a dedicated landing page on your website as soon as you possibly can for your alumni. Put resources there, links for them to engage you. Put a special phone number there that's for alumni only, and make sure that somebody very sincere and well-intentioned is picking up that call, not a salesperson. This page is going to allow you to illustrate how important it is to you, right? Do you give this page dominant real estate? Is it an afterthought? What kind of sincere intent is in the summary of that content? So this dedicated landing page is going to help reinforce your brand as a caring program. The focus should be on the people, right, that the program has reached, not just the program. So talk about our patients, our alumni. Is there a name for this program? Is it the ABC Society, right? So a lot of this, we've seen social clubs come out of some great programs. We've seen sober livings that have really cool logos, and so they give a lot of like T-shirts, hats, whatever to their alumni. And it really does build community. It really does build engagement. Get a kickball league going that is, comprised of alumni, and you'd be amazed how much they love their uniforms that have your logo on them. This kind of thing, this kind of engagement explains the benefits. It demonstrates the support, and it demonstrates that you care about the good health of former patients. Promote these alumni programs in your blog. So a lot of our clients directly, they struggle with, what topics should we be covering in our blog? Should it just be, how to choose a rehab center in our location or drug detox near me? No, those are things for Google, right? Those are advantageous in your SEO strategies and your ad strategies. But your alumni programs, you can just talk about good news in your blog, right? Hey, we just had an amazing 5K race, and we're just so proud of all of our alumni that showed up. We raised $1,200 for a scholarship program. Like, great job, everybody. You can celebrate in your blog. You can write, magazine-style articles about the happiness and wellness. Statistics about how many of your alumni, since leaving your program, have gotten married or started a new job. That would be awesome to know, right? So highlighting these personal stories, ideally focusing on your best goodwill ambassadors with their permission. You don't need to name them, but just talk about their stories as they succeed in their recovery. You're going to find a lot of powerful stories, right? So how good it felt to get a friend into treatment. So from your alumni themselves, if they're like, hey, actually, yeah, I was able to get my friend into you guys, and, it was not going well. I really thought he was going to die, but, like, he is doing awesome. Like, I helped him get a job. So your own ambassadors, as they refer patients back into your program, they'll tell you how these people are doing. You may or may not even be in touch with them yourself. and they otherwise would have remained either in addiction or worse, right? So these stories are going to help others that may have relapsed, right? So maybe they went to another program and they need to see like, hey, I can't do it the same way again. It wasn't working for me. I need a community to support me. I need some tools and resources. The blog is a great place to put that information, to create a category specifically for your alumni, and it gives them a reason to stay engaged with your brand, your treatment center, your practice. It keeps you relevant and top of mind for them. So as the epidemic meets pandemic, okay, for addiction patients, this is a crazy place to be, okay? This is not the new normal. There's nothing normal about this. The country has been rocked by this pandemic, okay? Nothing like this has been seen in 100 years. We saw a little bit of financial collapse in 2009, but that happened and global plague has happened, right? So society has been drastically altered, possibly for good, and that's not good for those prone to addiction, for those in recovery right now, to be isolated, to lose your job and be isolated. Quite frankly, some of the financial mechanisms, right? Give somebody in active addiction an extra $600 a week in unemployment benefits, and I know where that's being spent. So this is a horrific scenario. This is not an ideal scenario for your alumni, for people that need to get into treatment right now. So the potential patients that your alumni are talking to, there could be no greater test to a former patient's resolve than quarantine level conditions and social distancing, okay? When you haven't even seen somebody smile at you because they're all wearing masks, what does that do to your psyche? Alcohol and drug addiction are clearly on the rise in the age of COVID. First-time alcohol diagnoses is the fastest growing segment for all of our clients, right? Tens of thousands of calls. The majority of those are about first-time diagnoses of alcoholism requiring residential levels of care. That's what's going on right now. Your alumni program could literally, be the only thing stopping patients from falling back into addiction. So wellness checks, very formal, repeated calls. There's mechanisms, there's marketing tools where you can leave a recorded voicemail without having to ring to the patient's phone. I recommend that because it's relatively private. It's not like they'll pick up their phone and say, hey, who's this? Oh, rehab? It's not going to put them in a weird spot socially, but you can leave a voicemail for them and just have it automatically say like, hey, we're just checking on you. Like, how are you doing during all of this? How is work? Do you need to get to a meeting? We've got some telehealth options. We've got some video meeting options. So this is not an ideal scenario. And if you're supporting your alumni through this, you're doing the right thing. And if you're not, then you're actually doing a disservice. You need to really go work on this with your team right now, because the result is very bad from the statistics we're seeing of overdoses, of suicides. This is horrifically dangerous right now, and you need to be making meaningful connection with your alumni. All marketing aside, all referrals aside. How does this pandemic affect your alumni marketing? What channels do you need to use now? What's changed because of COVID? So again, we're getting into specific tactics. And we'll wrap up in a few minutes. We're almost at the end here, but I want to get some questions in for everybody. So as you look at these marketing channels, these meaningful connections with former patients, this has been tested by quarantine conditions, right? So right now whether or not you've got meaningful connections because you've been isolated, you've been distanced from your patients. Are you still getting engagement with them? Yes, no. Virtual communication went from being unfamiliar to most people to completely routine in less than 6 months, right? How many video chat sessions have you had? How often have you been FaceTiming with your loved ones because you can't see them in person? We got a really interesting statistic the other day from a solutions partner of ours, Cared For. It's a pretty popular alumni app in the space, but there's been a 783% increase in monthly virtual event attendance, okay? So this is treatment centers, using a video app for video meetings with their alumni, 783% increase in attendance. So there's your indicator that people are becoming more and more comfortable with video platforms, but also that they're engaging at volume, at scale, and they're willing to engage with your branded alumni solution, right? Currently, programs are reporting higher attendance for these virtual meetings than they ever did for in-person meetings. This is good. This gives us hope that possibly people that just logistically weren't getting to meetings they're at least being an active part of a community. You can see visually how they're doing. So although they, may become less integral in the long term as society reopens a bit, virtual meetings are going to outlast coronavirus. And this is a viable application for outreach to families, right? For additional support services, to provide actual meetings. I can't tell you how many people have talked about, in-person meetings being the biggest problem their alumni are facing. They're just getting canceled. Even church basements are closed, right? And then telehealth. Maybe you're using telehealth clinically and maybe not, but you can use those tools for this face-to-face connection during COVID. And then ramp up your social media and keep it up post-COVID. You can share a lot of safety protocols, a lot of life advice, but remaining in contact with patients through social media is a very passive way, a very effective way to convey this information, right? To maintain a level of enthusiasm. You can live life and live a life, abundant during these times, and here's how. So the pandemic has made this process more imperative. You don't really have a choice on whether or not to do social media engagement. It's important right now with social interactions being compromised to provide some hope and inspirational messaging. You need to showcase your former patients prevalently, discussing their victories, the small wins and the big wins alike. And honestly, you should really be providing a lot more life skills information. I would love to see Facebook accounts talking about how to build a resume, right, for your alumni, and some good recipes, right? What to cook when you're at home by yourself, and you're sitting here trying to decide, do I make an omelet or do I go outside and smoke another cigarette, right? This is going to give a lot of tools, a lot of lifestyle resources to keep people in a good mental space. With a powerful social media presence, alumni are going to feel more comfortable freely discussing their wins and thusly asking questions about their setbacks to each other. So this isn't all going to be positive, but it's going to be honest, it'll be transparent, and in social media, honesty is a good thing when you can find it. So create these gated, safety net kind of communities for your alumni, and they will engage in these conversations. And as we wrap up here, we're getting close to the end, but now more than ever, right? The better the relationship that former patients have with your program, the more likely that three things happen. They understand you have their back, okay, during very difficult times. They're less likely to relapse due to these current issues like isolation, general depression, even this political unrest that we're experiencing, right? And they're more likely to act as reliable referral sources. So that is the goal. These are the outcomes of making your alumni marketing a priority. As you do this, the one great priority is relapse prevention, right? So patients who relapse must see your facility, your center, your practice as their safe harbor. You need to be the place they go. And this is both as a long-term recovery partner, where they understand coming back is an option and a logical step in the event of relapse, and also building affinity for the old alma mater, right? This is why colleges that you paid money to go to still call you every 2 weeks asking for donations. They believe that you have an affinity for your life experiences that you had while you were living there, right? And with an effective alumni program in place, this is far more likely to happen, is actual brand affinity. No one is in a better position to refer patients to you than former patients, and an effective alumni program makes this process far easier. So that said, thank you all for joining me. We'll jump over to questions in a moment here. Hopefully you got some tactical insights to leave with today, and I will see you at the virtual conferences for Perspectives, A Time for Change, the West Coast Symposium on Addiction Disorders, and the Treatment Center Investor and Valuation Retreat on December 4th and 5th. So with that, I'm going to do a quick housekeeping item and we'll switch to questions. For Q&A, NADAC credit information, please do not leave this page. Please continue to stay on the platform, and you will be automatically redirected to an evaluation landing page. If this is your first time attending a webinar in 2020, you will need to create an Acme account when you're first directed to the landing page. For all subsequent webinars you attend, you will already have an account and will just need to log in. After completion of the evaluation, you will be able to download or print your certificate. NADAC credit is only offered for the live broadcast. So thank you all again for joining me, and let's hop over to some questions. How would you define an effective alumni campaign, an alumni program, I would define it based on the percentage of alumni that you're consistently, actively in touch with. That is the key statistic to consider there. How can marketing serve an alumni program and vice versa? I addressed a few of these points, but the more you're in touch with your alumni, right, and the more that you demonstrate you're supporting your alumni, the more credibility you'll have with other people that are considering your treatment when they see that you're invested in long-term support and long-term recovery for patients. So with that, we have hit our limit on time today. If anyone has additional questions, absolutely reach out to me. I'm happy to help, happy to be a resource, and appreciate your time. Thank you.